when does the human mind or body break? I'm interested in what that looks like, what that feels like, and we can all go far further and harder than we think we can go, and I think there's a great lesson in that.
Who is Spencer Matthews?
A father, husband, entrepreneur, endurance athlete who believes that we're all capable of a lot. I realized during Project 7 how much I care about earning the respect of my father and brother, specifically them. I definitely felt like a bit of a black sheep, like I wouldn't be included in certain stuff, but I didn't deserve to be honest. I was living a very different life to how I live now.
How are you with your kids now? Because there's an element of you that you're trying to prove something to your own dad.
It's a really interesting question, and I've not thought about it at all, and the answer to that is yes. Definitely. It's the first time I've thought about it. These events change you.
Are there days where Spencer Matthews wakes up and goes, I don't want to go for a run today?
It's impossible to wake up motivated every day. So what you can be is disciplined, right? Like the two things are different.
Sitting here now, I would call so many things you have done already successful. How do you define success? Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a great honor to be on a show called Extraordinary Life Stories.
So tell me, who is Spencer Matthews?
I am a father, husband, entrepreneur, endurance athlete who believes that we're all capable of a lot.
Go straight to Project 7. When did you finish that? We're filming February now for context.
4th of December.
Yeah. I mean, the why behind that, you coming up with that. Talk to me about that straight away.
So Project 7, for those who are unaware, was a full Ironman in every continent in 21 days. So the previous record for that was 3 years and 11 months, and we were successful in the 21 days, which, by the way, it's remarkable that no flights were delayed or any of the logistics didn't. But if the Arizona flights, for example, had been delayed or cancelled, the whole thing gets knocked. We'd have to buy a whole new flight. So I felt like we were blessed, by something greater than ourselves with that. Nothing ran late. Every flight left on time, broadly speaking, didn't miss anything. And we started in London, went to Arizona, Cape Town, Perth, Dubai, Rio, and Antarctica. I'd never done an Ironman before, although, I'd consider myself quite fit. And the why shapeshifts, changes all the time. It's quite a difficult question to answer, but I'll give it a good go. I find that attaching a great cause or purpose to these larger, potentially dangerous challenges really helps, because when things invariably get incredibly, rough or even life-threatening, it's quite easy to land or pivot your mind into, the pain that others are suffering. And I know that sounds a little bit, grand or whatever, but it's true. It makes quite a big difference. We did this particular one for male suicide prevention. It's no secret that in the UK, suicide in men is quite prevalent. About, somebody takes their own life every hour. So, we're looking to shine a light on James's Place, an incredible organization that helps men in suicidal crisis. And obviously, regardless of what I was facing, I'm probably not in the pain that a lot of these men suffer on a daily basis. So that, albeit a bit morbid, is quite helpful, because you're doing something that you think might help people who really need help. So it takes it out of doing something for me and brings them into it. I'm very interested as well in pushing my own physical boundaries, exploring where that line might be. When does the human mind or body break? I'm interested in what that looks like, what that feels like, and what I'm learning is that it's a million miles from where you think it is. I think humans don't do themselves justice ordinarily, right? I think these boundaries that we place on ourselves are false, and they're just perceptions of what other people say can't be done, type thing. We can all go far further and harder than we think we can go, and I think there's a great lesson in that. So keen to explore that, and I want to set a good example for my kids. I've got 3 young kids. I really want them to grow up in a world where they think that, they can achieve extraordinary things. I was really lucky with my childhood. I had two older brothers. One was a professional racing driver, really high level, really competitive. So I always had that, him winning, like as a kid, I always looked up to him. The other was an adventurer, climbing Aconcagua when he was 19. He unfortunately lost his life on Everest when he was 22. But even climbing Everest when you're 22 is a remarkable feat of bravery, right? I've been to Everest, and you know, for a kid of that age to go through the Khumbu Icefall at 22 years of age, at 3 a.m. in the middle of the night, it is a remarkable feat of bravery, right? So I've always had these awesome role models like in my life from a young age, and I would love to be that for my kids.
Role model. I was going to literally bring it up. I see you as a role model. So if
Oh,
you asked me why I wanted to meet you and film with you, it's because I'm a dad of two teenage daughters, and there's a
how's
lot.
that?
How is that?
Yeah,
God, how do I look?
you look great.
I'll take that.
Yeah.
In 14 and 16. So
Wow.
I know the ages of your kids, and I know that two boys and one girl. I know how important your girl is to you, and there's an element of a different way of perhaps how you parent your daughter to
Yes.
your boys. So with two girls, which I know we share an absolute delight in being a dad to a daughter, but it changes. It
Yeah.
does change. Boyfriends, um, the whole kind of
Social
hormones
media.
raging, social media,
Yeah.
totally the element of bullying, if you like, that can go on amongst girls. It's brutal. Boys can, whether it's get physical and sort of shake it out on the football pitch or whatever, or square up to each other. Girls is much more psychological.
Definitely.
Not in any way trying to put you off. I've got the most beautiful relationship with my girls, but it is, when I say, how do I look? It's exhausting. And do you know the other thing? And this brings you beautifully into this conversation, actually. I feel like a lot of what you've done has been bigger than you. You brought the charity up. You brought, the almost that pressure to build some pride into your life because of what your brothers have done.
Well, that and the I had a terrible relationship with alcohol for my adult life, which you're aware of.
Sure.
But the pride is a kind of two-headed thing as well, right? Like I realized during Project 7 how much I care about um earning the respect of my like father and brother, specifically them. Of course I want to be respected by everyone in my family, but there's feels like there's been a shift in these last few years, call it 5 years, where we are really on the same team now. Not that we were ever not playing together, but I definitely felt like a bit of a black sheep. Like I wouldn't be included in certain stuff, but I didn't deserve to be honest. I was living a very different life to how I live now, and it's kind of for me to prove to them that I am, you know, I don't know, driven and of
Capable,
value and capable, and
supremely capable. Yeah.
it came out in Project 7. It was really important to me, right? My dad being really proud of me was really important to me. My mum has kind of always been proud of me. She's like the ideal mother who, I love my mum. We've always had an amazing relationship, but I feel like I've had to earn stuff, and that's how it should be. Like if my son or either of my sons behaved in getting drunk on a daily basis, going out valuing all the wrong things, um, you shouldn't be. You should feel that
Mm.
is the wrong thing to be doing, right? Like I think my father played a really amazing role with me in that I certainly didn't feel fully accepted by him, but I appreciate that. I think it's important.
No, I've heard from a number of people, whether in this scenario interviewing them or you read it in books, hear it on podcasts, that so many people, especially boys, the one approval, the one respect they're seeking throughout their whole life, even if they don't realize it, and that your self-awareness, that it's clear that's come together over the last, as you say, 5 years, and those challenges that have been, again, that goes back to the bigger than you. There's a piece about you. I met you in the summer last year, and circumstances slightly different, if you like, but in context, you were bowling in. There was an energy about you that was, I want to climb this wall, I want to do this. There's a calm element to you that I wanted to sort of almost share that with you, that I can feel. because that's something you've managed to quench, that's something you managed to achieve. And I mentioned that role model piece back. How are you with your kids now? Because there's an element of you that if you're trying to prove something to your own dad, there's potentially something that creeps into your behavior with your kids. Have you been a calmer dad since you got back? Have you been a more sort of nurturing dad?
It's a really interesting question, and I've not thought about it at all. And the answer to that is yes, definitely, definitely. It's the first time I've thought about it. Um, these events change you. You know, they're for better or worse, I suppose. In some cases, I'd like to think I'm a better person. You know, after each of these events. The year before Project Seven, I did 30 consecutive marathons in 30 days in the Jordanian desert, and that changed me like completely. I came out, and even my wife was like, at first, I'm not sure if she like loved it, to be honest. I was more serious and I wanted to make changes in my life and, you know, leave these projects and chase this. And I was quite determined to really cut all kind of nonsense out of my life. And I think for a period I maybe became overly serious. You know, when I came back from Jordan, you know, it was a notable shift. And my wife and I get on famously, by the way. You know, I'm not meaning to create some kind of issue, but she, you know, she would say like, oh, you know, everything is quite, you know, it's all quite intense. Because it was, thinking about it, Project Seven strangely was more relaxed. It was harder, but there was a far more relaxed element to it. It was my second time round, so I kind of knew what was coming. And I wanted to take some of that little bit of the pressure off. You know, the 30 was, I had to achieve that. You know, like there would have been nothing worse to me than going out and blowing up and failing and coming back, having put it out there that we're trying to raise money for this and that, and, you know, really publicly stepping into this, you know, this is the plan, this is what we're doing, and then failing is worse than just failing, right? Those feelings of not being accepted, not achieving the thing you want to achieve, are kind of doubled by, you know, vehicles like social media and the British press, who obviously can be quite unkind at times. So yeah, no, with the kids after Project Seven, I've taken a huge interest in Theodore's football, like randomly. I'm not a footballer myself, and I don't follow football, but like I noticed that he was quite good at football, got him into this academy, take him religiously now, like regardless of what I have on with my week. You know, you hear about these business owners and entrepreneurs that just simply take time to do a certain thing, and it doesn't matter what opportunity there is or what meeting could come in. Um, I'm now in charge of his football because I know it's so meaningful to him, right? And this sounds like a very normal dad thing, and it is. But I always had a beautiful relationship with my three kids, but it's all elevated now. It feels more for them. It's strange. I don't really know how to describe it, but the football thing, you know, I don't care what I have on. I flew back from Ireland to take him to his football and then flew back to Ireland the following morning
Proper commitment.
just to make sure that I didn't miss. It's just a training session, just to make sure I didn't miss it. Because I told him I'm going to take him to every single session, unless we're on holiday or whatever. You know, obviously probably won't make every session, but you know what I mean. And I don't know. It seems a silly point, really, that we could probably move on from, but it's important to me that he turns up and gets there on time, does his full session, loves his sessions, and that we really fuel that passion of his. Because I think before that age, you're not fully clear on whether or not something's just a phase or a fad. Or he loves football, right? So I'm going to give him the best possible opportunity of being a footballer, right? I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that he gets into the teams he wants to get into, and if he's good enough, you know, goes to whatever level, you know. But that I see that as a really important thing.
I love that.
And
Yeah.
again, it's like it's probably something that every dad does, but for me,
Oh,
it's quite it feels new, right? Because Vogue is such an amazing mother as well. It's quite difficult to get to get into the plan sometimes. You know, like I see my role, broadly speaking, as um doing, like, helping Vogue wherever possible, supporting her with what she needs. But like she is so organized that, you know, she will plan months in advance what the kids are doing, how they're doing it, where they're going, and I fall into that and I help facilitate that. But I said to her, I was like, I really want to just take control of this
Yeah.
for him,
That's your
right?
bond as well. That's what I'm
Yeah,
picking up. And I'm imagining car journeys. I'm imagining chat
exactly.
before the game. And what a dad to have is someone that's motivating and inspiring you because of what you've done even recently. The sort of the resilience piece you got. He has a bad game. How do you pick him up? Well, you're going to help him with that, and you're going to enjoy that because you've got such a natural curiosity and an amazing energy to give to someone else, let alone your own kids.
No, but I don't know. I had a really interesting conversation with him about failure because the coach spoke to me beforehand and he was like, just in passing, they may be 7, but the level's really high, and the team is full. And, we're not going to waste time and energy on a kid that kind of shouldn't be there. And I thought, wow, this, fine, fair enough, quite blunt there. And I said to T on the way, I was like, listen, play your heart out, pay attention. Don't be looking for attention from me. Like listen to the coach. It's a big step up from where you've been before. Take it seriously, like have a good game. Like, you're tall and you're fast and, they're not going to be expecting you to do 100 keepy uppies, but just like get stuck in, and he did it and he got in and it was a huge moment. I was really proud of him, and I think that word pride gets chucked around a lot. People are always proud of each other, aren't they, for doing stuff, whenever. But
But,
I
but
felt
it's sharing that as well, isn't it? Sometimes, like you felt the need to earn your own father's pride.
yeah,
I imagine you're going to be much quicker to allow your lad and your other kids to actually feel that pride. Does
yeah,
that
but
make sense? There's a
yeah, sure,
vulnerability about you that's like, you're competitive. You're going to put that onto him. He needs that competitive edge,
yeah,
but you're also going to be there to guide him with the pride and let him know that he's doing a good job, and also potentially be there if, for whatever
yeah,
reason, he doesn't get to where his goal is,
yeah,
because then you can pick him up and show him how much he's learned,
yeah.
all that stuff.
No, absolutely. It's important to be honest with it though. Like when you feel proud, tell them you feel proud. If something's not gone quite that way, I'm not sure it's necessary to bend the truth, right? Like my dad certainly never did. It was kind of I'd show my dad something, and if it wasn't, to his liking, he'd say, like, okay. It would never be a kind of, oh, that's amazing. Like it's kind of, I think instilling a false sense of always achieving things well is not good for your character. I think
Yeah,
it's
no, I get it.
it's great to hold hands and be and help people through stuff. Your own kids, I'm talking about now, but
Of course.
I just think it's worth being honest with them from a young age.
Yeah.
If you can work harder and push harder and be better, then let's strive for that.
I mean, listen to this, right? It's a pleasure to hear you talking. I'm a hands-on dad as well. I was given advice early when my two girls were kind of 2, 3 years old, and I was in that entrepreneurial piece, and I was talking to older, wiser, wealthier guys that I was aspiring to beat, and I was saying, "Oh, John, I just got to stop you. Doesn't matter how much money I've made. Doesn't matter what I've done. Do not miss this time with your kids
Mm.
because that's the piece you'll regret." And it went in. It was like a recurring kind of record. So it's lovely to hear you talking. I think the bit I want to flip to it's such a almost a crisis in our young lads in particular is the role model piece, going back to it, and the fact that so many of them are growing up in fatherless families.
Mm.
And I think we both share a passion here of almost trying to help. A lot of what you do is bigger than you, whether
Yeah.
that's for your kids, whether it's for Vogue. I've listened to and read a few things before this chat about how you wanted to be the best version of yourself, to almost feel like you could then have that relationship that warranted with both. It's powerful, but that crisis we've got with young lads in particular, where they're turning to the wrong role models, where they're not getting the information, and then this goes back to the social media. How much can we almost sort of do, if you like? What needs to change in that space where kids seem to gravitate to a few people that put out messages that so many of these lads gravitate to, which is all about wealth. It's all about the Lamborghini behind you with the Dubai harbour
Yeah.
kind of look at me, which I think we've both been through our own version of a shallow piece in our life without you knowing too much about me. I certainly know, and almost that sort of, not regret, but there's an element of shame about some of that. I feel like you're much more at peace with that now, which flips it into like, what can we do? What's the messaging that gets these kids to then there's much more to life than just trying to make money?
I mean, it's a really complicated question.
Yeah, I
You
wasn't
know,
expecting you to solve it. By the
yeah,
way, I
yeah.
was interested in
No,
what you.
I think all we can do as men who've lived and who think we at least understand a thing or two is set a better example and be do purpose-driven stuff that that sets a better example for young men. I think social media generally is a massive problem, and you're talking about Andrew Tate there. Essentially, the messaging um, is tragic and misogynistic and loud, and it's the volume of it, right, and the attention that it gets, that's the issue. There are so many toxic role models that just get pushed to the top of the algorithm essentially because it's popular and easy content to consume, because it's loud, it's crass, it's full on, and it appears on the surface to have intelligent layers to it that are just wrong and false, and it's I don't really know how to solve it, mate. If I was prime minister, I would, put age ranges on social media. I wouldn't. I don't personally think that people under the age of 18 should be using social media. I think it's incredibly dangerous and detrimental to even the mental health of adults. Right? The way that it is structured and made, just ropes you in, pulls you in. Has you scrolling stuff that you weren't even looking for in the first place. It's replaced lots of people's um news. People get their news now from social media. It's unvetted, completely false, made up. you
AI
know
is riddled
it,
now
it's
through social media, right?
it's a problem. I deleted Instagram off my phone on the 25th of December. Just not had it. I don't have Snapchat, I don't have X, I don't have any of it on my phone, and I feel much healthier for it. And I got through that phase of going onto my phone to find it, and it's not there. It's like, you kind of get bored of looking for it. um but I think this I'm not the correct person, by the way, to answer this toxic masculinity question, but false ideals are pushed on young men that essentially aren't real, right? And it's, you have to be wealthy, you have to be strong in order to be attractive to women, right? And you have to have a you have to make loads of money, you have to be able to fight, you have to all this stuff, and there's this real misogynistic undertone to all of it that creates more inequality between men and women. I don't really understand whatever happened to just being kind. Like, if everyone is kind to one another, treats each other with respect, um helps people where possible, that's great. There is no difference aside from physicality between men and women nowadays. We don't need to be driving home any kind of difference there. That's his main crime, as far as, well, aside from the criminal stuff that he's engaged with. What I mean is, in his messaging, it's all like, men are this, women are this. Men and women obviously are inherently different, right? They think differently, etc. But we're no different as genders. We can all go after the same stuff, do the
Mm.
same thing. So I don't know. I find it all um as I said, I'm by no means the best person to talk about this, but for example, a thing or two that I do know about is the male suicide stuff, because obviously we've dug into it a lot and tried to make a difference through James's Place, as I mentioned at the beginning of the interview. Big drivers of male suicide are loneliness, and a general lack of feeling accepted, right? So I think, if anything, a lot of this toxic messaging almost creates a really undesirable um, trait around men generally, and if you're just a nice guy trying to get on with your life, and for whatever reason you're being demonized, just for the sake of that you are a man, I think it can potentially wreak havoc on your mental health. So I
Yeah.
think being accepted and stuff is something that we all deserve to feel.
I was talking to Grace upstairs about, the kind of how and why I choose to want to have that chat with someone. And it's because I'm so naturally curious, and I'm trying to be the best version of myself, as well as actually share conversation that other people can learn from. So when you say you're not the best person to answer this question, I get what you mean. But then when you share your perspective, which is becoming more and more with all the things you're doing and the challenges you set yourself, that then lean into helping others, where you learned about the charity, and those stats are damning, about suicide and the loneliness in men and so on, but actually that vulnerability piece, without in any way being woke or
Mm.
kind of actually weak, but just sharing how you're feeling and why you're doing something. Yeah, really compliment you with that. And I think that's, when someone says to you, haven't you changed, or you changed so much, and people could get offended.
Yeah.
It's probably the best compliment you could pay you, right? And there's an element of that to me where how you now talk with perspective and sense is huge. And I want to talk to you about balance
Yeah.
because if I
Also,
fielded you,
on the change front, anyone who's interested in growth has to change,
yeah,
right? You can't change size
no,
and grow without changing.
yeah,
So,
one of the what I
people should welcome change.
totally,
Change is very real, and all
yeah,
this, a leopard can't change the spots. Perhaps that's true, but people can change.
yeah,
That's for sure.
and you should want to change, particularly if you're not in any way happy with how you're behaving, or perhaps there's a way of being able to be a better dad, a better husband, a better friend. Then all of that for me taps into the whole. If someone turns around and says, haven't you changed? Well, hopefully that's obviously in a good way.
Yeah.
So I can remember the day you finished your challenge. My wife messaged me. I come out of a meeting. She said, Spencer's completed the challenge. It was a relief. Other people were bringing that to me, and I'm already conscious that we're in contact. So I think I messaged you saying like there was a relief from my point of view. I feel like that challenge tested you so much mentally and physically to the point where it's like, where'd you go from there? But I know you love a challenge. So it's like there'll be something that will creep back in. And I want to know how you're managing that and whether there's a piece that's kind of come from Project 7 that was so extreme. It's like, there's certain things I'll never do again,
Yeah.
but you still have to get the dopamine that you're Spencer, right? You've always pushed yourself.
Yeah. It's not about kind of beating the previous thing or like stacking them up so that there's loads of, trophies as such to look at. It's more about, and again, this is just real. It's more about living life. Like each of these challenges have been really different, and they're all completely unique, incredible experiences, right? We've curated and created and got the support of incredible brands, Free Train, Oakley, to name a couple, Huel, who allow the show to go on basically, and they come in and obviously help us cash flow the challenge. They get a bunch of content for that, and then separately to that, we raise money for charity. So they're two completely different things. Is the model basically? I don't get paid by the brands to do the challenge itself. There's elements that I wouldn't do again because I lived in fear of the moments leading up to them, and but I I would love to do more similar stuff just because they're the greatest experiences I've ever had in my life. Aside from having kids and meeting Vogue and falling in love and getting married, all the stuff that we all love. These experiences are completely unique, and as I said before, there's so much to them. I love this concept of thin space. Like I'm not a particularly religious person, but I did a show about for the BBC about a pilgrimage, and we went on like a pilgrimage through North Wales. And we met this incredible priest who was just lovely woman. It was amazing, and she taught us about thin space. And she walked us up to the top of this hill, and we sat on top of this hill, a beautiful kind of Welsh valley. And she said, pick a spot in the distance and just like focus on the spot, like meditate kind of thing, and breathe a bit and just like take it all in. Right, the sun was setting, amazing, beautiful place, and she started explaining this concept of thin space, which is the space between heaven and earth, right? That we can only access every so often, right? So it's that beautiful sunset, that moment with your wife on the beach, a gust of wind that blows through your hair, and it reminds you of, my brother, or reminds you of someone that you've lost. And Project 7 and the Great Desert Challenge are just full of these incredible moments. The sun coming up, Red Hot Chili Peppers blasting. You're tying your laces. It's not pain. It's like it's something completely different. Of course, there's pain in it, but it's actually stuff that I will always remember and something I'll always have. Like you can't take these things away. When I'm 90 years old on a hospital bed or a bed even somewhere, I hope to be able to tell my great grandkids all about the Antarctic swim and the build up to it and the leopard seals and, how dangerous it could have been. We tore the wetsuit and, there was all this drama. We had this incredible meeting with these Chileans and Russians the night before all about safety. And I went back to my room and I thought, what am I doing? This is insanely dangerous, right? And should I be doing it? But all of these emotional roller coasters that you get throughout them are not real life, right? It is real, obviously, but it's not what you ordinarily get to feel. Like, this is a really elevated sense of being alive. Like, all of these moments stacked on top of each other create this unforgettable adventure. So, I would love to do a Project 7 or something like it every year. I won't be able to, soon enough. My body will give up, when I'm a bit older. And also, it requires an awful lot of planning, loads of funding. It's a great big job, and I'm, so delighted that I have a supportive wife who is cool with me doing it. I think if you remove the charitable element, we'd have some problems. She's delighted with our fundraising efforts so far, and I think she's really proud of me. Um, but uh, but yeah, I think it's an interesting concept of just how you frame things generally. Like, if you see something as big and scary, then that's what it is. If you see something as a once in a lifetime, unique, chance to experience something that potentially no one else will ever experience, then you feel completely privileged to be doing it, right? And I felt proud, happy, energized, and driven to go and do this thing.
Sure.
I wasn't at all worried and fearful, and because we'll worry about things when they go wrong is kind of how I tend
It's a great attitude.
to manage things. And things trust me, things went wrong. In Cape Town, in the water, it was 8 degrees, which is pretty cold. You would definitely class that as a cold water swim. I didn't have gloves or boots because, but for whatever reason, I just didn't think I would need them because we're in South Africa. um Pitch black in the water at 4 in the morning. You've got that constant lingering feeling of white sharks. You can't see anything. You're so vulnerable, you're so alone, you're freezing cold, you're hyperventilating because your body's in shock. That is not pleasant, right? But it's an incredible um I can feel it now, right? It's an amazing experience, and it really helped me rationalize fear. You have to logically break down what's happening. And I was panicking. Like, I don't mind saying, I got in the water 100 meters in, I'm breathing like freezing cold, pitch black, dark, frightened, scared, seemingly alone, and I'm just like feeling like you're going to get eaten by something. It's horrid, right?
You're
uh,
not selling it.
no, no,
You're
exactly,
definitely not
exactly.
selling it.
And then you have to go. There hasn't been a white shark attack in this bay in 40 years. I'd be really unlucky if there was one today. Um, the water's 8 degrees. It's not zero. So even if I get early onset hypothermia when I get out, it won't be full hypothermia. It's not going to end my day, because I'm not actually freezing. The water's not cold enough to cause any damage to my hands and feet. I may not be able to feel my hands and feet, but like they'll be fine
It's temporary.
as soon as I get in the shower. Yeah. So like you start going through all of this, and all of a sudden you start to breathe a bit. It's like, you're also thinking, if I get eaten by a shark, I get eaten by a shark. I may as well not worry about it, right? Because it's either going to happen or it won't. And until the time that I'm in its ghastly jaws, I may as well just enjoy the swim, or try to anyway. So there's a lot of that, a lot of fear. I remember the night before the Antarctic swim, which is 0 degrees. There was a blizzard, like a full kind of hurricane style blizzard going on around the hut that we were in. And
You tried to open the door. I just remembering your
yeah,
socials.
couldn't
It
open the
was
door.
literally
Yeah,
full
yeah.
of, yeah.
I'm 85 kilos. I was leaning into the door with all of my might, right? Couldn't open the door, and then eventually got it open. You'd think that there was something blocking the door. There's nothing blocking the door. It's just wind. So, like, Antarctica can kill you in a moment's notice. It's a super hostile environment, right? And I'm sat there, and Tom Beard, who directed Finding Michael, is there with the camera going like, "So how do you feel about tomorrow?" And I was like, "Mate, oh, sorry." I don't feel well at all about tomorrow. I don't feel good about it. I've just done 6 Ironman. I'm depleted. I'm tired. I've not slept well in a while. Like, my longest sleep so far has been on the flight from, Dubai to Rio, or wherever we were going. And to be honest, I'd love to just go to bed. And this idea
Yeah.
of doing an Ironman tomorrow in Antarctica, being the third person in history to do an Ironman in Antarctica, also going for the fastest time, doesn't at this particular moment in time feel very appealing.
No. I've got a huge respect for you. And I know that's mirrored by so many people that I told you I was at the Twickenham, the rugby.
Yeah, yeah.
And actually, I had some of the legends of the game, the Jason Robinsons, the Manu Tuilagi, all that. And I said on film, and they said, I tell you what, I'd love to ask him is he's an athlete. He is a machine, 3 times Guinness World Record holder now, right? Was he really sporty at school? Is this something that carried on that was, or has he actually managed to then train himself and do all this as an adult? And I want to put that to you.
I
At
was not.
school, were you in the gym? Were you in your sports teams?
I was in the sports teams. I wasn't a particularly noteworthy athlete.
Because this is inspirational to hear, right? Because that's where the question's coming from. It's not like you were an absolute, excelling in that sense. This is all something you've lent into and trained.
I was a B
huge.
player. I was a B team player. I was quite good in the Bs, and when I was in the As, I was average for the As.
Yeah.
But I made the first team for the odd thing, not all things. I
Right.
wasn't like your superstar athlete. No.
No, I love hearing that. And then the other part of it is the mindset, and of course that I just love listening to you then and the way you framed the whole dramatic about the shark, but it's happened and they're in the water there, and it's like that's all I'd be thinking about. And actually, huge respect. I don't think I could do it. I love a challenge.
I thought I wasn't sure I could do that swim. When I got in, the swims take about an hour and a half on a good day, with all the nonsense and the sea, and it's open water, and it's a lot of the time it wasn't flat at all. And I can do that swim in nice calm water in an hour 21. Most of these took an hour 30, say.
Sure.
And so that you got an hour and 30 minutes of this, right? It's like if you're going running for 90 minutes, it's a run. That's a workout, right?
Sure.
So it's kind of It's strange though. It's the way things come at you is different. Like, because it's the smallest part of the race, it feels like the smallest and most insignificant part of the day. So you kind of just jump in and it's done after an hour and a half, and then you crack on with the rest of it. But if I had 3 hours to train tomorrow, and I was to say, right, I'm going to go and swim for 90 minutes, I'd be like, so that's. But here it's just like, well, it's just the very first bit, But
Yeah.
it's funny. I'd never swam that distance really until recently, just before it, and it's quite therapeutic swimming. Actually, it's quite a nice thing to do. I don't know if you swim. You look very very fit.
Yeah.
But
I'm beard everything. I do lots of things. I played paddle yesterday, and just enjoyed it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I value fitness. This is why this conversation's I'm loving it, because there's an element of you take it to the extreme, literally. But I do my fitness that keeps me good here in my head.
But what I love about it, and it gives you what you give to it, right? So like, it's a tale as old as time. Sorry, tale as old as time. Super boring, consistency, layering. It genuinely, there's no better thing to do, right? If you're wondering how to go from, I feel slightly unhealthy, I wouldn't even like to run 5K, to, running your first marathon, say, just consistency over time. Stop drinking, like stop drinking for a month should do it. Do 30 days of no drinking. Go running like 4 times a week. Do a couple of longer runs, super slow, nose breathing only, like, able to speak in full sentences, don't even feel like you're working out, call your friends whilst you're running type thing. Couple of slightly faster sessions a week. You'll be able to run well in no time. Like,
You're
it's just
so much fitter than me.
yeah,
I
but
can't run and talk. I can't, so I'm obviously running too fast, or just really, but just listening to you then. I'm running with the headphones on or something.
It kind of defines zone 2. So you hear about this zone 2 training. You have to run slow to run fast. It's really hard, by the way, as somebody like me who likes to compete and likes to, like, I like a grindy session, right? I like a session which is hard, because you come home and you feel like, you've done something. You're actually not going to progress much as a runner if that's all you do. Like, I'm really guilty of lacing up. I go for a few laps at the park, and like, as soon as I start, I go, oh, I feel good. So I just hammer it, and like run like fast laps, and you blow out a bit, and you get home and you've done a big session. That's not great. Zone 4, zone 5 tempo stuff, great, like once, maybe twice a week. The rest of it should be slow, like slow. It's a big tip. And actually, you find it's the difference between aerobic and anaerobic training, right? And it's kind of like, if you need a nice aerobic base, right, where you just build miles like in your legs, and you get your body used to traveling, like without it feeling stressful. Then you layer in a bit of speed and stuff. That's really helpful. Like I just,
No, that's
it's
brilliant.
hard though because you'll get bored. Like I go out and I go so slowly that like you're wandering around and I'll literally just jump on. Like I'm talking about like a really light jog for 2 hours. So you hardly don't cover much distance. Just 2 hours jog. Um, it's a big part of the base. Like you need that,
Yeah,
which is music to lots of people's ears, right? Because
absolutely.
that's the kind of running that people don't like doing because they feel like they're not running. But that's a big part of running.
That's brilliant you shared it. And I think I wanted to bring consistency up with you, not just to understand how and what you do, but also no day's the same for you.
Mm.
And
And
take
by the
the
way, just
challenges out.
sorry to interrupt. Just when I said stop drinking, I'm not judging people who drink, and I don't mean stop drinking forever. I just mean it really helps with consistency. Alcohol, in particular, for me, is a killer of consistency. Like if I'm looking, for example, I'm running the Tokyo Marathon on the 1st of March. I would love to achieve my first sub 3. Like a few years ago, like I wouldn't have dreamt, right? I always knew that I'd be okay at endurance, right? Because it's longer, it's slower, it's a big mental game. I know that I'm not going to stop. So that's one thing. A sub 3 hour marathon, forget it. Like I used to look at people running sub 3s and I'd be like, they are freaks of nature. Like I don't understand it. It's a fast time to run a marathon in. And I'm on the edge of it now. And, for me, to give myself the best possible chance of doing that, I've not had a sip of alcohol since Christmas. I've been, very, very, very consistent with my sleep, pretty consistent with like nice, good food. Just giving myself every chance, right, to hit
Yeah.
it. And if I go out and I make complete balls of it, then then that's that.
No, that's
But
great.
I want to give myself as good a chance as possible. And that
Yeah.
and for me, cutting out alcohol really helps with consistency. If I have like a few beers today, I probably won't train tomorrow, and I'll come up with some excuse for it has a quite severe knock on effect.
Are there days where Spencer Matthews wakes up and goes, I don't want to go for a run today. I don't want to. And do you allow yourself to not? Or do you still lean into it and go, I'll just do 3K? And then that still becomes, but I just want to know whether that's, you know what I mean? Because
Yeah,
are you that machine?
no, like no. There's nothing extraordinary about me as a human, right? Like that's motive. It's impossible to wake up motivated every day. Like so, what you can be is disciplines, right? Like the two things are different. So motivation is great when you have it, right? You feel motivated to go and do something. You really want to do it. You want to be in the gym. That motivation drifts, shape shifts, changes, and sometimes just isn't there, right? Like I woke up the other day, and for whatever reason, I was just freezing cold. I felt like a bit ill. I was very cold, and I was supposed to go to jujitsu at 7 in the morning, and my alarm went off at 6:10, and I kind of got out of bed, and I was just like, oh my god, like maybe I'll just get back into bed. I just won't go, and I got back into bed, and then I thought, oh no, come on, I have to go because like I'll let my guy down. Paxton's there, and I didn't want to just. I didn't want to have no excuse for bailing. Oh, actually, I want to have an extra, half hour in bed. But I think um, if you're looking to really put runs on the board, and you're looking to progress, and you're looking to get better, the best thing you can do is stick to your plan, right? Like, and I think if you create a plan for yourself that has consistency in it, so I'm going to lift weights Monday morning, Wednesday morning, Friday morning. I'm going to run, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday,
So you
right?
plan it in.
Yeah, so I'll know roughly what my training week looks like ordinarily. I mean, now it's kind of like clockwork. Like I sort of know, like Tuesday's track day, and Monday I lift weights, Wednesday, Friday I lift weights. Running is a little bit more fluid for me now. Like I'll look at my day and I'll go, right, I've got an hour and a half here. I'll take a backpack with my kit in. I'll change in the loos at Untapped, and then I'll do my run around the nearest park, and then I'll come back to Untapped, put my clothes back. If it's like a super busy day, otherwise I'll just plan to run at the beginning of the day or at the end of the day. But no, I do think that consistency is important, and when you start to allow yourself the breaking of positive habits, that's when the kind of comfort begins to drift in, and I mean, of course, like spending an extra couple of hours in bed is lovely. We don't get that luxury much, obviously, because we've got 3 young kids anyway who need tending to. So we're up before 7 anyway. I think that's made a massive difference actually, having the kids having to be up, having to be awake, having to be up, and supercharged before them is obviously helpful, gets you up. Without kids and before kids, I was far less disciplined, definitely.
Yeah.
Makes a
More
massive difference.
accountability. And you talk about drinking. That's when I stopped drinking myself personally, because I didn't want to have that whole fuzzy head and not be that person. Because kids, the minute they wake up, young kids, they're on.
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
literally, there's no kind of like, I need a coffee and so on. You know this, and they're on you, and it's like, take me to the park. I want to
yeah,
go to the
yeah,
swings. And if you're not on your A game, you're
yeah.
not that person that they expect. That I didn't want to be that dad. So that was actually a conscious decision years ago to just think, just
And,
drop it.
and just to finish on the discipline point,
Mm,
not possible to be motivated all the time. You can be disciplined every day if you want, right? That is a choice, being disciplined. Even if you don't feel like going to the gym, going for a light run, going for one lap is better than doing nothing.
sure.
Definitely. And you'll always feel happy about it. Like, when you really don't feel like doing it and you go and do it, you're going to feel better about it. You're never going to go and do it and then regret doing it
Yeah.
ever, right? It's exactly the same as like nobody ever wakes up hungover going, God, I wish I had one more drink last night, ever, right? Those words have never been said. It's always the opposite. So I think it's the same, right? It's the same as I think broadly speaking, doing the things that you know to be right is a good idea.
I like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that. So I mentioned your podcast, Untapped, and listening to Jordan Wiley. I feel like I gravitate to people almost in a tribal way, friends, business partners, the sort of entrepreneur world, which you sit in as well. And the ADHD piece surprised me because you said when you were talking to Jordan that you've got ADHD. I didn't know that. I was
Yeah.
going to in some way kind of almost say, are you actually diagnosed?
I didn't. I don't. People with ADHD, please don't take this the wrong way.
Mm,
I don't take it particularly seriously,
mm,
right? I get told I have ADHD all the time, right? So I went and saw somebody because my producer at the time at Global said, you should get diagnosed. You should get diagnosed. And I was like, or a diagnosis, sorry.
sure.
And I said, but like, even if I have it, right, I'm not going to take pills for it, and I quite like who I am. So like, I don't feel like I need to change. So, the fact that I have some ADHD related traits that, you're clearly picking up on is neither here nor there. But, anyway, so
No,
I
I
went
love
and
this.
I
I
went
love
and
this.
saw this person. I was there for a good couple of hours. I did a bit of a test. Um, I think I was supposed to come back for another test, which I didn't do. I said to him, just, you must have diagnosed hundreds of people, thousands of people. He's the guy. And I said, what are we dealing with here? And he was like, oh, you categorically 100% have ADHD. I was like, okay, great. What do we do for that? Like nothing. Okay. So he was saying you can take these pills that a former person that really helped me with my drinking issues that I had said, it's not dissimilar to cocaine, the pills. I'm not a doctor, just for the record, but he basically was just like, you shouldn't take those pills, and frankly, I think I'm fine. ADHD, I think, can be a bit of a superpower. I've recently been exploring a lot about psychopathy, psychopaths.
Mm.
I have a film coming out.
Yes, I listened to you with Davina.
Yeah.
You were talking about it a bit then. That
Yeah.
sounds
I
fascinating.
have a film coming out quite soon, actually.
Yeah.
And I won't say too much about it because PR is present. But it's really cool. And for people, just generally speaking, psychopathy, and I'm not saying that I am or am not a psychopath. We explore that in the film. Psychopathy is a really interesting one. It's obviously it's very, very heavily stigmatized, to the point where you hear psychopath, you just think murderer, dangerous person. It's far more complicated than that. Actually, a lot of people have psychopathic traits. In fact, most people would score something on a psychopath test, PCLR, and it's a really interesting deep dive into psychopathy and what it means to be a psychopath, and it's pretty cool.
I'm going to really enjoy that.
Yeah, I think
And I
so.
think this is where the relatability to you is that you are so naturally curious. You'll open up. You'll be going through every single bit to try and understand it all. The ADHD piece for me, to almost lean into why I asked you that, was when I was at an event called Ideas Fest, and a guy called Alex Partridge, who was the founder of Lab Bible, was being interviewed by the guy who created the biggest kind of ADHD clinic diagnosis meds company. And the conversation where every question and every sort of part of the conversation I was relating to, I was like, I do that, I'm like this, and so that. And I was 46 at that point.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm 48 now, so it's a really new thing for me. And this whole like labeling and so on. I've lived in my own organized chaos, which you
yeah,
probably relate to. Not, I don't need a label. I don't
yeah,
need to. I'll never use it as an excuse. I've never turned around and use it. I just did that because of my ADHD, right? But I recognize that actually, and this is probably where you said I'm sort of almost not diagnosing you, but that whole like hyper focus,
mm,
relentless energy, like that set you a challenge, you're gonna do it, right? And that's actually something you've harnessed. That's probably where I'm going with it. Like you have embraced it, whereas it's really sad to hear that people that have got ADHD have got that sort of things really wrong. They've gone into addiction, which of course you've got your own story with. Actually,
yeah,
there's
yeah,
been times when you have channeled it into the wrong things.
yeah. I'm not trying to classify one as any differently to the other, or I think we're all on a spectrum in some way, right? And I think it's pretty rare that you'd ever find anyone who's just normal right nowadays,
No, I get
particularly.
it.
Yeah, so like I don't know. I think we're all individual.
Yeah,
We're all interesting in some ways, and
yeah,
boring in others, I
yeah, yeah,
guess. And I I don't love the "Hi, I'm Spencer. I have ADHD" thing, or "Hi, I'm Spencer. I have this." And that. Like I'm just me,
yeah.
right? So I don't know. Like it's not.
No, no, I think
I
you've.
don't know what it is actually about it. It's nothing against ADHD. It's nothing like it's more. I feel like I meet a tremendous amount of people nowadays that have ADHD, and it's kind of like it's almost like the first thing you hear, and I don't know. It's almost like that. I don't know. Am I comparing it to like veganism or like it's like something you have to tell people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, no. I,
I
I
don't know.
think I think you've articulated beautifully. I think
I'm not sure about that, but yeah.
no, I think you have. I'll tell you why I say that, because the element of like not making it part of your identity, and
Mm,
there's so much to your identity. So it's like, so for me to find that out hours before we're talking, otherwise I may not have brought it up in such a way. But because I know Jordan and we've had the conversation, it
yeah,
was like, oh my god, that's a whole full circle moment for me,
yeah,
where two guys that take disproportionate risks,
yeah,
push themselves so hard, and then managing that. And I think the positive message here for me, quite simply, is that actually, there is a lot of negativity around it, but
yeah.
actually you can channel, you can do a lot with it. You love learning, don't you? You've got an insatiable appetite for learning. There's so many things you've done. There's clearly so many things you're going to do. Sitting here now, I would call so many things you have done already successful. How do you define success?
Well, firstly about the learning, my favorite things are the things that I have no idea about. Because it's great. You get to talk to somebody that knows something that you don't.
Yeah.
And you get to pick something up, and you leave
Yes.
the conversation with. It's part of. It's one of the things I love the most about Untapped, right? Is the I get these incredible athletes, and it's very kind when people think I am an incredible athlete. I there's a nicheness to what I do, right? They're kind of one-off, they're unique events, in the sense that, often they haven't been done before because there's a very tricky logistical process to it all. It's a creation. It's something else, right? If you look at an Alistair Brownlee who has done an Ironman in 7 hours 40, that is that is tremendous athleticism, like to the point of you can't believe it. Like it's not real, right? Like he'll do a 4K swim in 45, 50 minutes, right? Then he'll jump on a bike and average 45 kilometers an hour and do 180K in 4 hours. Then he'll run a 2:38 marathon or a 2:40 marathon.
Superhuman.
Forget it,
Yeah.
right? Like I'll never be able to do any of those segments in those times, let alone all three together. So there are complete levels to this stuff. Ask Alistair Brown if he wants to do 7 Ironman, in 21 days, ending in Antarctica. He'll say no, right? I just interviewed him, so it's interesting to me, right? Because I find what he does fascinating. How does he fuel? How does he train? How does he recover? How do you get that fast? Like how long have you put into the, like for me, that's the kind of real, that's amazing. Whereas to him, he's like, how did you do what, so I would be more interested in what he has achieved versus what I do, which I imagine most people would be. I would love my kids to love me, for my whole life. I think if I could be a pillar to them where they can come to me for anything and we could be friends, our whole lives, that would be a big marker of success, I think.
Someone said to me that if you're son or daughter wants to go for a meal with you when they're like 23, that's
Yeah.
success.
Yeah. No, it's amazing. I think that's a huge job, right? Setting an example, coaching them, teaching them in the right ways. So you're not you're not just there. They want more. They want to learn more. I've always like admired my family. I'd love them to have that with us. I'd like to be very wealthy. I think it's important. I think it buys freedom
Creates
and all
options.
kinds of stuff, creates options. I'd like to be able to invest in things that I want to invest in. Whenever I feel like it. Freedom in terms of uh, you know uh, financial freedom. I think it is great. Obviously we do just fine, but I'll never get bored of chasing that and building my brands and judging success in that crude way as well. I think is I don't see a problem with it at all.
No.
And I want to be fit and healthy. I think Jimmy Carr said something quite interesting, didn't he, when he did a podcast saying that if most 95-year-olds in the world or most 90-year-olds in the world would give everything they had to be 30 again. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think when my time has come, that's fine. I'm not interested at all in living forever or longevity in the sense that some people are. Keen to live a good life though, and be healthy.
Yeah.
If I can remain fit and strong into my later years, that's wonderful. That's success. Um, and always be surrounded by people who you love and who love you.
Yeah.
I think I know a lot of very, very successful people who ultimately are probably quite lonely. Marriage broke down because they focused on just chasing those $1 billion deals, and wife got bored and left, and kids are splintered, and they have no relationship with the people that should matter the most to them. And I think that's really sad.
It
You
is, yeah.
can't you can't you can be a billionaire on your yacht on your own. It's going to suck, right?
Yeah.
So,
And a
well,
lot of those people may have had a
it might feel nice for a couple of days,
yeah, yeah.
but
But what I like about what you're doing is the variation in what you do. You get stimulation from your family, get stimulation from your entrepreneur experience, your investing, your challenges that you're excited about the steak you can have later. Your eyes lit
yeah,
up. There's a real energy about you where actually you box things up. There's probably quite a big visualization there. It's a bit of a cliched question to ask you this, but because of the journey you've been on from what was a young Spencer, that dare I say was seeking to try and get the approval of your dad, was in any one way probably trying to justify the fact you're not just living but doing amazing things because of what happened to your brother,
yeah,
tragically dying, your other brother who was being successful in his own way, to have gone through this journey to where you sit right now. The advice to a younger Spencer, from all the things that you've learned, all the things that you've been able to, big smile there, where there's so much knowledge you've got now. What's the one thing that you'd flip back as advice to a young Spencer?
it's tough, isn't it? Because young Spencer's mistakes are the reason that I
Isn't that
exist
the
as I am
lesson?
now. Yeah, so I guess I probably wouldn't try and change too much. I reckon I probably exhausted it, a little too long. I could have probably flicked the switch 5 years earlier, maybe.
But some people
But
never flick the switch.
yeah, so I don't know. I don't regret it too much, to be honest. And I think that I think if I could go back and tell myself to stop taking shortcuts, stop going for the easy win, stop going for the easy, unbelievable, too good to be true deal, you know, stop trying to, turn your startup into $1 billion startup in 3 years, do it in 10.
So ego driven at that point.
Just relax, right? Just like be more considered, take your time, try and make a difference, work hard, make a difference, um, if you can. And set good goals and stick with it.
Yeah.
I was a sucker for a quick, easy deal. I just saw a real wheeler dealer kind of
Yeah.
high margin over here. Let's dive in there. Nonsense. Like I
Yeah.
think building things takes time, and I fortunately have never fully been impacted by the opinions of others really outside of my family. And I'm really lucky about that because I think it's so easy to get sidetracked
That
and to
whole
listen
external
to
validation.
yeah, just all this like what can I do to be liked, right? It's just nonsense, right? Like, and you see it all day, every day, like people saying and doing things specifically because they think it's the thing that they should say to
Sure.
appeal to this audience. Say what you feel like saying. Say what's real to you. And if people don't like it, then tough, right? There's going to be people that like it, and
Yeah.
then you'll find your crew.
Yeah.
It's just like I just find, particularly a lot in media, you just see people that are just a bit lost, and just trying
Well,
their
they're
absolute
masking, aren't they?
hardest to
They're
be liked. It's like,
yes,
who cares?
shape shifting.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've
I
had a
don't, I
few
don't,
people.
I just think there's so much more value in kind of doing things that matter to you.
There's a real sense of fulfillment and enjoying what you do. You light up when you talk about. There's so many other things we could talk about, but I'm conscious of time, and I'm conscious of something I thought of that would be quite a nice way to end. Is you are a pro now and super experienced at both sides of asking or being asked the questions. Which do you prefer?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. A lot of our interviews are kind of conversational,
Yeah.
so I think answering the questions takes some pressure off, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So, and although I'm less selfish than I used to be, I still like talking about,
Yeah.
stuff that we do.
But you
And
continue to be evolving and interesting, and then you're wanting to like the psychopath thing. That's what I'm going to be.
honestly, it was so interesting because, again, not looking to ruin anything, there's big waves that run through it, right? Because it's actually what started as a bit of fun, just kind of like, oh yeah, like I don't really care, like I'm me, who cares what, then you start to realize, well, actually, what if
Yeah.
this, what if, like it's
Yeah.
going to be a tough thing to. So anyway,
You're going into
we
that real
filmed
time
we
to learn,
filmed we
find out.
filmed a huge amount of content with extraordinary people, and it's coming out pretty soon.
Yeah.
Channel 4.
I can't wait. There's a relentless side to you. These massive challenges, and in between, there's so many other things that you're doing. What do you do in your downtime?
There's never really a full, like, on the day off there'll be, it is like voice note day, so I'll fire off a bunch of voice notes that are just on my mind, but that can be done from anywhere. Day off looks like, well, nowadays it's taking T to football in the morning, because it's typically on a Sunday. I'd like to spend as much time with my wife as possible. Have you ever had a Bleecker burger?
No,
I'm in no way in business with them, unfortunately.
not
Right?
plugging and
But
delivering.
yeah. But like,
Bleecker
okay,
burger.
yeah. So I eat an extraordinary amount of Bleecker burgers, right, throughout the week, but certainly on my day off, right. So they're incredible. They're all over the place, right. So I can't believe you've not had one.
No,
It's like a black sign with a white burger thing outside, and
I'm going to see them everywhere now. Right? I'm going to be
Bleecker,
like, that's
Bleecker.
what you.
You get a double bacon cheeseburger from Bleecker Burger. Buns are baked fresh every day. Again, I've nothing to do with Bleecker Burger. Buns are baked fresh every day, and the meat is like sourced locally. There's no, like, nothing is processed. It's all fresh. They're so good, right?
Oh,
So
wow.
I'll have
You're
two.
selling this well, man.
Yeah, I'll have two double Bleecker Burgers, in a single sitting with no chips and no milkshake or anything. Just two double Bleecker Burgers on my day off, and probably at least one other time during the week. I probably have 4 a week. My wife and I would like to go for a lovely meal. Like, we don't get out too much and go on kind of dates and stuff, because we're losers at night. So like we're in bed at, like, I want to say 8:30 every night. Like, might do an episode or two of something, might read a book for an hour, but like, we're lights out by 10. Like, I'm we're asleep. Which we love. Like, we're big, like, we wake up in the morning with perfect sleep scores. That's the dream. Like that. Genuinely though, that's the dream. Which is a very different dream to the dream that I had for years and years.
It's a far more sustainable one. And you look good for it. You look super healthy.
Mate, I've got an 89% average sleep score for the month. See you later, lads. Like, that's.
I hate you. There's a reason why I don't wear one.
It's the stuff. It's the stuff of dreams.
Wow.
Yeah.
In my house, about 11:30, my wife would tell me, say, should we watch one of the... We haven't watched it for however long. Let's get back into the series.
At 11:30, you'll start watching something sicker.
Terrible. It's a terrible... inspiration goals from you, 100%.
Look, it's so boring. Anyone cool listening to me giving interviews, it's just going to be like, what a loser. But like, I'm in bed at, early. I'm up at kind of 6:30. That banks me like 8.5 hours of sleep. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. But you're buzzing off it. You're thriving off it. I looked forward to this conversation a lot because I knew there was going to be a certain amount of relatability, and the fact that I think something that aligns us so much is that natural curiosity. So massive thank you. It's been a busy schedule, getting in the way of your steak. You made time to talk to me. Did you enjoy it?
It's a great pleasure. I loved it. You're a gifted interviewer.
Bless you.
So natural.
Coming from you. Well, I'm
No,
super
no.
interested in you, and thank you. Spencer,
That's very
legend.
kind. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you,
having
mate.
me.
Pleasure.